Okay, so the first thing that I'd really like to talk about in depth is we're storytellers, that's what we do. You know, and you build your entire career and your identity on the stories you do for magazines. I mean, there's a reason they're called stories. And that's all the, you know, does everybody know what a story is in a magazine? Yeah, I don't want to assume, sorry. It's like, I know that's a ridiculous question, but, because some people, you know, it's the main well, too. It's like the main well is a story for that magazine. And then there's the stories inside of the story, you know, inside of the magazine story. So, but even a show, runway shows are a story. And you have to, like, and that's the biggest mistake I see people make, designers and stylists, is they don't create it as a story. It's a narrative. You know, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it has to purposely flow like a story. You don't just put whatever outfits out because that's how you woke up that morning and decided that you wanted to do. Like, you have to have a very specific idea of how you want your story to read. And even, but it's all, you know, and the fun thing, the thing that I love about what we do is like completely visual. Like creating, you're not using words at all, but you're using the visuals that you're creating with the hair and makeup that we guide, with the casting that we do. I mean, the models alone is a story. And I see that's another mistake I see people make over and over and over again, is that they're like, oh, we're just getting this girl because she's the big girl. It's like, but how is that, what does that have to do with your story? So being able to learn how to create, I think stories comes first, and then your voice starts to come. You start to really figure out, for me, what happened, you know, I really found my voice when I was working at Pop. And I was doing these shoots for Katie, and I started to see like the stories I was really gravitating toward. And it was all sexy, powerful, funny women. Like, that's my voice, right? Powerful, super sexy, with an insane sense of humor. And so those are the three things that I do. And I might do a story that's more a sense of humor and a little bit of power, or, you know, so I mix it up. But once you start working on your stories and you practice story, you have to practice it over and over and over again, you start to see what your voice is. Like, oh, okay, like, I'm really attracted to this. And then with voice, oh, hold on, let me just check my notes really quick. So the definition I have for a story that I've created is a story is an account of real or imaginary people and events told for entertainment, and in a stylist world, to sell products. So there is an entertainment value to what we do for people, for the mass market. Like, so when I'm shooting for a magazine, my real client is not the reader. My client is the magazine editor. That's who I'm working for. So it is business to business. My business is taking care of her business or his business. But the entertainment value comes in for the reader. So because her concern is the reader being excited enough to buy the magazine and her circulation going up, and her advertising rates going up. So we are telling our stories to sell products. And it took me a long time to get over the fact that we're salespeople. But it's actually incredible, because once we become really, really good at telling our stories to sell things, we get paid a lot more money, like through the roof. I mean, once I learned how to do, once I had done a couple of shows and I was working for an American designer in New York, and I did with her revenues went up 200% after the first show I did, like 200%. And she got like 50 more tear sheets that season than she'd ever gotten, and she got better reviews than she ever got. And that's the results that we create that allow us to like charge way more money. And it's so much fun when you go from like the one rate to like, when you go from $1,000 to $4,000. You're like, oh my God, my life just got so much better. You know, it's like I can get a nicer apartment. No, but you know, you can start to really take care of yourself and grow your business. And it's all based on your ability to tell stories. So, let's see. Stories are also like your voice. It's an account of a person's past. It's what they love. It's very much a stylist style. It's their past events in their lives. That's what we use as references. It's like what I was talking about before with the background. You know, like we style from our own background. So, and it evolves. That's why it evolves. People's, like, if you look at Grace Cunnington's work, You can go to the library and see like the 1980s Vogue. It's so different, and it's so insane to see the refinement that she's had over her career. And I'm using her as an example because she's been in the business for so long. She's been one of the few people to be able to stay in the business so long at the top. And when you see her work that she did in the 80s when she first went to American Vogue with Anna, you can see that the same voice is there, but it's just tweaked in so hardcore that it's like she doesn't need to add another ring or another crazy whatever, because it's so tuned in that she can just put this dress with this hair and this makeup and this model, and the whole story is told. You know, and it's just honing the craft. It's like honing the craft. Our stories are also created from our own references and the knowledge of history, whatever history that we're into. For me, I started doing all my book reports in elementary school on fashion. I was like that crazy kid who everyone's like, oh my God, you're a weirdo. Like, why are you reading about Chanel in 4th grade? You know, every single book report. But I started building my history from this really young age of like 11. And so the amount that I know now to work from is so much more vast. So that's something I highly recommend. It's like, figure out, you know, and if you've done it, like if you're a little bit older like I am, I've done it with a lot of fashion. I know a lot of fashion history. I'm pretty good with fashion history from Victorian to the turn of the century, of last century. I'm working a little bit more on the further stuff, but I really get into now, I work on my history with art and with film and with music. That's where I draw a lot of my own. And also TV, and also nations, like what I was talking about with the nomads. Like, I didn't know that there's like 6 different types of nomads. And you start to look, and it's like one totally, these Maasai people, they look like Comme des Garçons. Like, it's insane. I was like, oh my God, Comme des Garçons. And I can sit and look at the Comme des Garçons collection and go, oh wow, that was the Maasai tribe from Africa. And you start to sit and you look at them and you're like, oh, okay, get it. So like what makes Ray Kawakubo at Comme des Garçons so incredible is her references. And that she's looking at these insane nomadic African tribes for inspiration. And then she makes the most beautiful, crazy Japanese French clothes, you know, that then all these like nutty fashion people love. But, you know, so it's all about our reference. And I never, ever start, because with storytelling, it's like, I have so much refinement to do myself, you know? And so with every history research project I do, I learned so much about my voice and what works for me. And it's also, the fun part is translating. Like once you have your voice, like my thing, powerful, sexy, and sense of humor, like taking a Maasai tribe and making that work inside of my voice is so much fun. Like it's crazy, you know, and like you like mix it with some, like I'll take some agent provocateur and put it under like a wrapped plaid thing, and you know, and put it with an insane pair of fetish heels, and then suddenly I start to have my voice inside of this really, you know, obscure reference. So it's really working on your references and your knowledge of history, whether it, like whatever culture you love. And that's, you know, part of figuring out your voice. What cultures do you love? Because that's the kind of stuff that their clients look for. Like our clients, I get put in rooms of the like weirdest clothes, and they're like, make it make sense. You know, and they put like literally a room this big with like 60 racks of clothes, and they're like, go. And they don't give me any direction. And they're, you know, I mean, you're with me on one of those, and and you know, it's so much fun. But if I didn't have all my references and my voice and my storytelling skill like really built up, I would have been petrified. Like because you can't make something cohesive. And for me, I really love being put in a room with a whole bunch of clothes and being told to create a story, and it ends up being the entire identity for a company. You know, for clothing companies, it can be translated into hundreds of millions of dollars, which is so awesome. But I have to really have my skill honed in of how to make those 60 racks of clothes make sense together. So that's why storytelling is so important. Also, when I started, like, I was just looking at what kind of woman do I want to be? You know, or like for me with men, I look at what kind of man do I want to date? You know, like fantasy man. It's about a fantasy too, you know? It doesn't have to be super reality based. And that's what I love about someone like Grace Coddington or even Marie Amelie. Like they're super fantasy based. Like a lot of the women that they do, it's like they're aspirational characters. You know, no one's expecting anyone to run around in a couture gown, but it's an aspirational woman that can inspire someone to say, oh wow, like I really love, you know, I'll go buy the perfume. I really love that Dior woman. You know, so it's creating the kind of, finding out who, like for me, it's like aspirational. I'm obsessed with I love ladies. Like I grew up in Texas, So I grew up in Neiman Marcus, like from like this small, and those like crazy ladies who have on the Chanel boucle suits, like head to toe, with the insane, like totally done makeup and hair, and a gajillion diamonds dripping, and the Hermes Birkin. I'm like, from like, 5, I was like, oh my God, these women, this is like, and of course I do my own crazy version of that now, but I have the aspirational lady in my head that I look up to, and it's like, okay, sometimes I'm very much doing that lady. And then how do I put it inside my voice? So references can be a person you see on the street or a person you see in Neiman Marcus. I mean, it can be anything. It's just kind of keeping your eyes open and looking at what stories do you want to tell. Because we're always working on a person. You're always working for a demographic. You're always telling a story to a demographic. So it's the man or the woman. And you have to be really clear about who your man or woman is. And it will change when you're with different clients, but that's about your voices. What kind of man or woman am I? And then also, who is the aspirational woman or man that I style for? And like my man and my woman, they're totally different. For men, I like really chic, classic, old Hollywood with like an edge. Like that's what I do. It's different. I'm still working on it. I'm still developing it because I don't do that much menswear. I've been specialized in women's wear. And so I'm like, oh, okay. I've been really looking at like what kind of man do I aspire to work with, and I've been working with a menswear designer to work on that with myself, like to be like, okay, what's the story I'm really telling here? And I always kind of end up with a really funny like posh Euro kind of kid. Is like what ends up coming out, like a rich like boarding school kind of kid that's like totally nuts. Like eccentric artist is what my man is right now, and I'm kind of working on expanding that to make it as powerful, because it's not as powerful as powerful, sexy, sense of humor. Like those are very clear. So it's really fun to start working with that.